Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Holly, and today I'm sharing a little different video with you. Instead of a recipe, I decided to show how I made my daughter's baby shower cake, and I'm using some Betty Crocker white cake mix and just some almond extract. I like to add that whenever I make a white cake mix. It flavors it really nice. And I'm using actually two of these pans. Two different sizes. I was going to use the small one as the topper, but decided to forego that, and I'm just going to use the two instead because I have something that gives it a little bit of height on top, so I don't need that third layer. But all I do is just make the cake mix, just how the directions tell you to do. Then I will grease the pans, and I like to add the batter in cups. And that way, when I make another cake pan, I have the exact amount, so the cake layers are level and they're not different sizes. So that's one tip. Just measure out in cups how much each pan will use. So when you make a second pan, it will have the exact amount. So this one I think took about 6, and I try to level it off as I go. And since the second pan is smaller, it's going to take less batter, but just level it off and just add it to your pan. Just remember how much you're adding, so when you go to do another pan, you'll put the exact same amount and you will get the same levels. Now, I'm using a leveler to cut the tops off the cake. Now, that cake board that I have there kind of got in the way a little bit. I usually put this on a smaller cake board, and I also use a plastic one instead of the cardboard because I find the cardboard kind of sticks a little bit. Your cake will stick to it a little bit. But I cut that off, and you can just use the top piece if you want to make cake pops, or if you want to just snack on it, that's fine. It doesn't have to go to waste. But this is the plastic cake board that I use, and I'll flip it. And I'm going to flip it again because this is the part that you want to put the icing on, but I need to level it off just a little bit more, so I just flip it back, and I'm going to just take that leveler and just cut through because it didn't do so well with that board that was there before. And you want to make sure as you're doing this, you do it slowly and just kind of pull it through. But you want to make sure those the feet of that leveler is on the counter at all times, and just make sure it doesn't lift up or anything, and you should get a decent level cake. Now all I do is just take all of that extra cake off and try to just get whatever crumbs are there, just to make sure it's a nice clean surface. But then I have a cake board. This is going to go on the bottom. This will be the bottom layer. So I take a cake board and I just put a little bit of icing on it, just so that way the cake doesn't move around or anything. It kind of glues it, if you will, to the board. And then I'm going to flip it over. And you kind of want to make sure, I've done this so many times that I kind of realize where the middle of the board is, so it kind of stays center. And you can see how that plastic cake board comes up so easy. It doesn't pull on the cake. And then I'm going to ice in that because that's going to be like a middle layer. So you want to have some icing in there because then another layer of cake will go on top of that. Now, I could not find for the life of me, I have a larger tip that I use to do this part, and I could not find it anywhere. So I was a little frustrated about that. So I'm using the smaller tip that I have, and I'm having to kind of put a little extra. You'll see that in a minute, but I'm just using the cake turner, like a Lazy Susan type thing, and I'm just turning the cake as I go. It makes it easy to do this. But this is the middle part, and you do not have to you don't have to level this part off if you don't want to. And I just kind of fill in little areas. And then I put another strip going around, just so that way when I put the next layer on, it kind of holds everything in, if that makes sense. So then I'm going to take and put this cake on top. Now I'm flipping it back onto the plastic one, and you'll notice, you can see that cardboard pulled that cake up, but that's okay because I'm going to level it off anyway. So that part's going to come off, and that would be underneath where the icing is. So it's not a big deal if that happens, but you just pull it through, and you may get where the cake wants to break apart a little bit. Just push it back towards the cake and just finish leveling it off. And I just take all of that extra cake off, and you'll get a nice flat surface. And then I will flip it back again because I need that bottom part to go on the cake, and I want that for the top. So I take this cake spatula thing that I have, I pull off the cake board and just kind of lay that back on. And I do that for the top layer as well, but I don't show that in this video. Some things I did not show, but I'm going to level this off because the next cake has to go on top, and you want to just smooth it out the best you can. Now I decided not to use the tip that I had for this, and this is actually how large it would come out if I had my other tip that I was supposed to use for this, and that worked out great. Now I could not crumb coat. I'm having to put a little bit more icing on my cake to crumb coat because I didn't have enough room in my freezer or my refrigerator to do that the way I would normally do it. So I'm putting a lot of extra icing on, but I'm also pulling it off as I go. That way there's no crumbs on the outside of the icing or anything. So that's another tip. If you're not able to crumb coat, just put extra icing and then just turn it as you go and pull all the extra off. And the icing won't go to waste or anything. You can save it and use it on something else, but I'll also use it on the next layer of the cake. And the Lazy Susan, the cake turner, does make it so much easier. And this is a different angle of me cutting that top off of the next layer. As you can see, it's very easy. It's sharp enough to do that. And I'm going to turn it just to make sure I get that level, because sometimes there's a part that may not grab it right away at first. So you just work with it until you get the level that you want. And it's just that easy. And I will say the leveler works great. Now I'm going to put the supports into the cake because I need to put another whole layer on top, a whole other cake. So I take an edible marker. It has edible ink in it, so I just mark where I need to be able to cut that so it will fit inside the cake. And I will do that for all 3 pieces that will go in. And this cake board is plastic. And then I just they have little knobs there that you put the little supports in. Find the center of your cake, and then you would just push that in. I realized after I did it, it wasn't quite centered, but that was okay. It still worked out fine. And now that will support the next layer of cake that needs to go on top, so your cake doesn't fall or cave in. So this is going to be the top layer, and I'm doing the same thing as I did before, and this makes it so much easier. You don't get a bunch of crumbs all over the place. You just put the icing, and I will level that off once I get all of that icing in the middle. And since this is the top of the cake, I do level it off some, even though I'm going to put something else on top of it. I want it to kind of have a little bit more flat surface. And I take that spatula that I have there, and I just go around again and do the same thing I did for the bottom, and make sure I get that as smooth as I can. But then I'm going to make the decorations that I'm going to put on the cake. This is fondant, and usually I just take the fondant off when we cut the cake. We don't usually eat it. It's more for decoration. But I have this little mold that kind of has a wood grain look to it, and I'm going to press that into the fondant. And you want to make sure you get a good impression into it, so make sure before you pull it up that you press it down enough to get an impression into it. And now I'm using a fence shaped cutter, and I will line it up to where I feel those boards will give you that look of a picket fence, wood grain. And I just press it down really, really hard, because you want to make sure you get a good cut on this. And then you just pull it up, and I take a sharp knife and kind of cut the fondant away, because you don't want to pull the fondant if it's sticking to the fence, as you can see right here. You don't want to pull it because it will distort what you just did. So just cut it away, and then I just clean it up with a knife, and I pull all the other pieces that aren't needed for it, and I will just roll that all back up to make more fence designs. But you just clean it up with your knife, shape it back up, and that's all you really need to do for this, or any fondant that you use. Just remember, if you're pulling something away, you want to kind of clean it up a little bit. Now I'm using some green fondant. I was hoping for a lighter green, but I couldn't find any, and I didn't want to mix it up. And I just take that mold, and it will give me the impression of grass. So then I cut that, and this one, it's really not hard. You just cut around it. And then for the top part of the grass, I just take a sharp knife and kind of cut in between all the little spikes of grass, the blades of grass, and it just gives you that look when you're done, and you can tell that it's actually grass that you've made for this. And just take a flat knife and you just kind of pick it up, but you can see that it kind of has that grass look. Now for the very top of the cake, I wanted to have something that looked sort of like cobblestone, so I took some white fondant and I took some gray food coloring, and then I just mix it up. And I usually try to have a little glove on or something for this, because it will turn your hands that gray color, which I don't like to use gloves usually, but for this I chose to do so. And I'm just going to mix it up the best I can, and I'm using some cornstarch just because it gets sticky. So with fondant, you can use cornstarch to kind of make it a little bit less sticky when you're using it. Now this is a cobblestone type mold, so I'm just going to put that into all of that gray fondant, so I get that look. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I was going to use all of it on top of the round part of the cake. And if I would have realized I was going to do that, I would have cut this out into a round shape. But I wasn't sure, so I was going to actually just do like a little pathway kind of thing. But then I decided to put it on top of the cake. So for this, I would have, like I said, taken the cake pan and cut out a circle. It would have been a little bit cleaner looking, I think. But it worked out in the end. And once I'm done, I just put it on a cookie sheet and let it dry. I do that with the fence and the grass molds as well. It's just, I like it to be a little stiffer when I go to put it on the cake and it's not falling off. But this is what it looks like when it was done. I did not film putting it on because it was about 2 o'clock in the morning the morning before the shower, and it was so hot that day, and I traveled about 40 minutes to where we were having the shower, and that icing wanted to melt off some, but it turned out fine. I think it turned out cute. I did have little butterflies I wanted to put on here, and I did not have that. The butterflies here are just blocking the name on the banner because I didn't want their name to be on there. But overall, the cake I think turned out cute. And my daughter really liked it, so that's really all that mattered, and I'm just glad I was able to do it. Always loved making cakes for her, and it was great to be able to make a cake that was for my grandchild. Now, I'm not going up further to show what's on top because it shows their name on that banner that's in the back, their last name, so I was trying to avoid that. So this next little clip, it's a little smaller in size. You'll see it in a second, but it's a little musical mama bunny. And the blue butterflies are there trying to block their last name on that banner. But like I said, I was happy to do this for her, and I'm so glad I did. We had a great time with family and friends. Hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in seeing more like it, please click the subscribe button and the notification bell. That will notify you when I post new videos. Thank y'all so much for watching. I hope everyone has a blessed day. God bless y'all.